All right, so here's a question. Can the panelists discuss intersectionality and coalition building as in regards to immigrants, I can't make out this next words, and Muslim people, Latinos, yes, and Muslim people.
Could you say the question one more time?
Okay, can the panelists discuss intersectionality and coalition building in regards to immigrants, Latinos, and Muslim people?
I can start because that was actually something I wanted to raise in the previous conversation about coalitions, is that, so frequently, MAP frequently works outside of the LGBT movement, building connections with mainstream progressive civil rights organizations, for example. And often when I approach them, they say, well, we don't do anything LGBT, or we don't see our work as being LGBT focused. And I always then say, I've got some data I'd really love to show you about the percent of your of Latino people, for example, who identify as LGBT and where they live and what their issues are. And so I think the more that we as a movement own this stuff and say, we do have folks who are like you serve XYZ people, guess what? I've got some for you, and I want our issues to be part of your issues and your issues to be ours. And that's in our work, I sort of say, here are the issues we've identified. What are you working on? And can I integrate that into my stuff? But also, when you start talking about immigration, for example, let's talk about immigration detention and the number of trans Latino women in immigration detention and how they're being treated. And when we talk about safety of detention facilities, I've got some great examples that you can use when you're approaching folks to advocate on that. And so I think it's the movement pushing outside as well as letting them push us to be more inclusive in how we think about those issues. And I think poverty work is another example where for so long we haven't worked on poverty, and there are organizations out there working on it. And so letting them say to us, you guys really need to get on board with pushing for SNAP or pushing for inclusion of these other things. And so I think we have to be open, but we also do have so much data now that allows us to say we do exist in your community, and here are the issues that our community members have. And I think that it's a real value.
And didn't you show, I think, in the previous panel that there was a slide that indicated 40% of, was it African American women or have children?
Same-sex couples raising children, right? Children. So I mean, if you want to talk about kids, like our communities of color are raising a lot of kids, and I think it's pushing out back against the stereotype that a lot of folks outside the movement have about who gay people are, which is that we're one-dimensional, right? That it's just our sexual orientation or gender identity that we care about, and I think we have to put forth that is not who we are at all. That we are so much more diverse, and it goes back to having diverse boards and staff and all of that. But I think what we communicate outward is as important as what we say to the folks coming to us.
Abby, we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, no, I have to agree a lot with what Naomi said, and although I don't quite remember the question now, but
can we discuss intersectionality and coalition building with regards to immigrants, Latinos, and Muslim people?
The one thing I would add is that if you are not from a community, it's really important that you let the community kind of tell you things. Sometimes I think you go in thinking you know the answer, just for whatever reason, and like you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to listen, because the way you approach something doesn't mean it's the right way to approach something. So I think that's really important in doing that.
And also, to piggyback off of what they've both been saying, also is to use our privilege. We all have some type of privilege, so I'm from here, I'm not an immigrant, so it's like when it comes time to protest, I will be willing to sacrifice my body because I know what's going to happen to me is going to be different from what happens to them. And then also within our sphere of influence of making sure that we're being good allies to each other, whether you have a Muslim or a Latino person present or not, saying, hey, we're not going to make these statements and go that route. Just being good allies to each other.
Well, I think that's a really key point too, about being allies or advocates for each other. If we are really trying to cast a wide net, take care of each other, folks, yes, should be in the room, but if they're not, we should still be speaking up on their behalf, just as we want people to do on our behalf.
For us, right. So it's like, let that community lead the way, but it's like we're saying, if they're not in the room, be present for them, speak for them. Yeah.
Someone has to speak up.
Yeah.
And Imani?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. I thought it was really great. I mean, out of tragedy, sometimes this happens. But after the Orlando event, I too was on that listserv, lots going back and forth. And then in Chicago, there was this listserv as well, talking about all these things that were happening. And as an organization on the South Side, we felt like it was important to host something on the South Side of Chicago. And as an LGBTQ person of color, this tragedy was, it hit me in a way that I didn't expect that it would. But as a Black LGBTQ person, I think that it was really important that we name that in this particular instance, my particular community was not the most hurt by this, and many times it is. And but saying that, we were really intentional about the ways that we're doing our work, and we contacted. Now I'm blanking on the name, United Latino Pride, that to figure out what they were doing and how what we could do would support the activity they were doing at that particular time, but then also offering something different for people on the South Side. And I think that was something really important, because we don't want to offer events that are exactly the same where people have to choose between, but rather provide opportunities for people on the South Side potentially to have access to go to a vigil that happened at Tenor Halstead that our community wouldn't have had to. And we were very intentional when we had this event. We pulled it together very quickly, but we're proud of what we did. We had therapists there. We're both Spanish and English speaking therapists. We had a Reiki massage therapist. We had a community building activity there. With the results that we are going to send to Orlando, to the Pride Center there. So we were really intentional about the work that we did. But then also to think about immigration as well. When we think about marriage and what that is and what that was, I think that a lot of times we're thinking this is what makes an LGBT family. Now this is possible. But that conversation didn't always include what families look like when people didn't have citizen status here in the United States. And I think part of that work is being intentional that families look a lot of different ways. Like you looked at those at the stats about Black women are most likely to be, Black women in the South are most likely to be raising children where one is biologically related to one partner but not the other. And that is a way that we think about how a family is made. And similarly, when we think about what immigration looks like, how families are being built. And so that we are always thinking about the inclusivity of families when we're when we're all looking at all parts of this, and just making sure that we're being inclusive. Thanks so much for that question.